to Young Adults. My name is Fredy. I'm the pastor of Young Adults here at Northview, and it's good to be back. I missed last week because I was in Alberta on vacation for a wedding, which was fun, but it threw off my week a little bit because I'm used to being here on Fridays, so I feel like I've been away forever, but I just missed 1 week. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 3, so if you brought a Bible, you're welcome to turn there. And as you turn there, I want to tell you about one of my favorite movies, Hacksaw Ridge. It's a great movie. I love the genre of biopics, right? So these are movies based off a true story. And Hacksaw Ridge is a story of Desmond Doss, who was a Seventh-day Adventist. He was a religious guy who served during World War II as a combat medic. And the movie does a great job of showing the story of Desmond and the courage of Desmond. So he's this young guy. His dad served in World War I. And when World War II breaks out, he enlists, but he tells his commanding officer, I'm not going to carry a gun. I don't take life. God is the only one who can take life. So he refuses to carry a gun. His unit rejects him. They bully him. They beat him. They label him a coward. And it's not until they're deployed and then these guys fought through Okinawa, which the Battle of Okinawa. And if you know World War II history, that was the first Japanese home island to be taken. And it was ugly. It was horrific fighting. And in that battle, he saved almost 100 soldiers that had been wounded in action and won a Medal of Honor. And in that moment, his reputation was saved. Like, people saw his quality. But they had roasted him for months. They had hated him, mislabeled him. And Desmond kept powering on. He showed tremendous convictional courage in maintaining his conviction, I do not take life, even when the whole world is at war, because he loved God more than he feared man. And as we look through Daniel 3, we're going to see a story of 3 young men, 3 Jewish men living in Babylon who loved God more than they feared man, and they showed us what honoring God looks like. So the big idea for tonight is honor God by defying tyrants. Honor God by defying tyrants. So it's one story. We're going to go through the whole chapter, and then at the end I have two lessons for us. So first, one story starting in Daniel chapter 3. It's 30 verses. I know Adriana had someone else read for her, but my voice is just okay after having belted it on the last song, so I think I can read 30 verses. So Daniel, starting in chapter 1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And the herald proclaimed out loud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated, and he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" And they answered and said, True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace, and he declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own. Therefore I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. 30 verses, long story. We're going to go through it, and I just want to walk you through the details of the story. Last week, Adriana taught on chapter 2, and her big idea was God grants wisdom to the wise, and we saw that Daniel was a wise man who trusted in God, and by trusting in God, by turning to him in prayer, he was able to interpret the king's dream and earn great favor. And then at the end of chapter 2, so chapter 2, verse 49, we're told Daniel petitioned the king and said, "Hey, my 3 buddies, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they prayed with me. You should appoint them to some important thing." And we're told in verse 49 that they oversaw the province of Babylon. And then chapter 3 opens with a scene in the province of Babylon. We have no time markers. We have just a location, the plain of Dura. But because the stories follow, it makes sense that it would have been relatively soon. Chapter 2 was in the 2nd year of King Nebuchadnezzar. So this is early in his reign, and he is testing the loyalty of all his people. We're told that he set up this big idol. So Daniel 3, verses 1 and 2, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Our story begins on this plain in the province of Babylon with this massive golden image. It is likely based off of the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had in chapter 2. In chapter 2, he had this big dream, and he asked Daniel, or initially he said, everyone's going to die if you don't interpret my dream. Daniel interprets the dream, and his vision is of this massive figure with a golden head who represented King Nebuchadnezzar, and then this big body. And then we're told in chapter 3, he set up this golden image. So it's quite likely, in commemorating that dream, he makes this golden image, and this is designed to be worshiped. This isn't like a neutral thing. It's not a memorial to like, oh, this king, right? It's a worship service, and it's an image of imposing size. A cubit is like 1.5 feet, so 60 cubits ends up being about 90 feet, right? So this thing is massive, and this is a world where they don't have excavators or scaffolding, so it was tremendous effort to build this thing. The closest image we have from back in the day is the Colossus of Rhodes. So I want to show you a picture. This is not a real picture. This is a modern CGI rendering of what the Colossus would have looked like. So this is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And in reality, it was actually on a platform. It didn't actually cover the harbor. But the idea was that this Colossus stood over the harbor into Rhodes, and anyone who could approach the city had to pass by this massive, massive statue. And it showed the glory of this city. It was a worship symbol. Nebuchadnezzar does something very similar, something almost the size of this Colossus, and it is designed to be a worship symbol. He invites every ruler, every governor, right? The passage is like annoyingly repetitive in telling you about the prefects and the justices and the magistrates. It's trying to say everyone who was anyone comes forward and comes to worship this image. It is both a religious experience and an opportunity for Nebuchadnezzar to test the loyalty of all of his servants. Are you going to worship my gods? Are you part of my kingdom? And we see that he invites everyone there and then issues this edict. Chapter 3, verse 4, the herald proclaimed, "You are commanded." So it's not a suggestion. It's not a, hey, only if you want. The Babylonians were polytheistic. They believed in many gods, but as they gather, they're going to worship this God. You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages. So no one has an excuse. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what language you speak, you will worship this. When you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into the burning fiery furnace. This is a non-optional worship service. So it's hard for us to imagine because we live in Canada where you can come to this church, you can go to the church down the road, you can go a little further and there's a Sikh Gurdwara. So we have options, and it's not a big deal if you go to different ones or if you go to many different ones. But Nebuchadnezzar lived in that kind of world, a pluralistic world, but he's saying, no. If you don't come and you don't worship here, you will die. You will die immediately. Non-optional. Everyone has to play the game. And this is a little bit strange that he's demanding so much devotion when their pantheon was full of gods. When it was a very normal experience that you would worship one god and then another god, and no one had to worship all the gods. So Nebuchadnezzar is going above and beyond and makes this decree that if you rebel, if you do not conform to the things that he has said, you will die. But our story unfolds, and we see the bravery of these 3 men, but they don't oppose him directly. Right? They just don't do it. And someone else comes and someone snitches. Verses 12 to 14. There are certain Jews, right? So certain Chaldeans came. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon. And you can tell like the weasel of a person that would have said this, right? They're like certain Jews, as if they didn't know the names, that you appointed, right? You can kind of see the jealousy in their voice, right? They're like, Nebuchadnezzar, you picked, loyal people. These guys don't even worship your God. Certain Jews that you appointed, you should have listened to that Daniel guy, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. Right? So they don't participate, but it's seen as an act of rebellion. They're not playing the game. They're not doing their part. They're not doing what everyone else is doing. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. And Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up?" The command was very clear. The punishment was very clear. So really, the king owed these men nothing. And even in his furious rage, we see an ounce of mercy that he brings them forward and asks, "Is this true?" And he gives them another chance. He's like, well, are you going to step up? The language of the passage shows that this is not viewed as a light thing. You're not paying attention to the king. They don't worship our gods, right? It's not just that you're not playing the game, right? These men have Babylonian names. They gave up their Hebrew names, their Jewish names, and they have been trained, along with Daniel, in the ways of the Chaldeans. They're supposed to be Babylonians now. And he's saying, no, you're not. You are not acting like one of us. You don't worship our gods. You don't listen to me. These are rebellious men. And Nebuchadnezzar confronts them, but he opens with an ounce of mercy. Is it true? We had a similar experience this week in my household where my middle son still needs a little help to get on the potty, and he likes to take toys with him. So he took a crayon, and once you're in the potty, he makes you leave the room. He wants his privacy. So my wife helped him to the potty and then left the room. And he was carrying a crayon. And as you can anticipate, I'm sure where this is going, she came back like 5 minutes later, and there was clearly drawing next to the toilet paper dispenser on the wall. And my wife looks at him and says, "Did you do this?" "No." "Did you do this?" "No." "Well, then who did it?" "My brother." Right? And he snitched, right? He lied, that dog. And that question, did you do this? Right? The question, did you do this? We know who did it. It is an act of mercy, and then my wife is trying to help him see the error of his ways. Nebuchadnezzar is attempting to show these men the error of their ways. You're Babylonians. You have Babylonian names. Everyone else is doing it. Why can't you be like us? Why can't you fit in to our world? All the languages, all the nations, all the peoples are worshiping this golden image. Worship just like us. What's wrong with you? The king challenges these men, and they respond quite boldly in verse 18. "We will not serve your gods. We will not worship the golden image." And so now there's nothing left that the king can do but move into judgment. Verses 19 to 23. Nebuchadnezzar is filled with fury. So he was already mad. Now he's big mad. And the expression of his face was changed, right? When you're really angry and you can't look at someone because they've really wronged you, Nebuchadnezzar has been really wronged. These men challenged him by disobeying. And then when they were brought before him in his royal court, they said, "Nah, we're still not going to do it. We're not Babylonian. We will not worship your God." And so now he overdoes it. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated, and ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. That detail is in there to help us see how rapid this happened. The decree earlier had been, if you do not obey, you will immediately be cast into the fire. And we're told in great detail, they were taken as is. They didn't take time to put them in their prison garments. They just said, we're going to wrap you up right now. We're going to tie your hands, and we're throwing you into the fire. And because, verse 22, because the king's order was urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. This is a little, like if you've ever been camping and you see, when you start a fire, I'm not the most amazing camper nor the most amazing fire starter. So I do the shortcut, right, where you dump a little gas on there or you use one of those propane torches, right? But when you put an accelerant into a fire and then you light it, does it light slow? No, right? It lights big. And so the image we have here is they probably use some sort of accelerant to light the furnace fast, because Nebuchadnezzar is going to make an example of these men. If you do not worship our gods, if you don't act like us, if you don't think like us, if you are not Babylonian, In Babylon, you will get burned to death. And that fire consumes some of his men. He is acting irrational, right? He loses some of his best soldiers in trying to make an example of these rebellious men. I was on Instagram a couple weeks ago, and I follow an account that does, it captures road rage incidents. It is tremendously entertaining. And road rage, if you're unfamiliar with the concept, I encourage you, drive on Downs Road, get stuck in the traffic, and you will soon experience what road rage is. But road rage is when someone, through a series of circumstances, becomes unhinged based on a traffic encounter, and they act in wildly irrational ways, doing things that when you take a step back, you're like, dude, where did you think this was gonna go? And so this incident was a motorcyclist revved his engine as he's going through a suburb, and this cyclist ran him off the road and starts punching this dude on his helmet. And if you've ever, a motorcycle helmet is designed to survive impact with the ground, with asphalt, at 150 kilometers an hour. So what do you think fists are gonna do on a cyclist with no gloves? It boggles the mind. And he's punching the guy, tries to steal his keys. The guy's like, I've already called the cops. This is all on video. The guy continues punching him, and then it fast forwards, and then you see the police officer, and then the cyclist is like, what? He revved his engine at me, I was in danger. And lost his mind. The image we have of Nebuchadnezzar's actions in this moment are that he's having a road rage incident. He has lost his mind. He's been defied by these Jewish men, and he's being irrational. Throw the gas on the fire, right? Take my best soldiers and throw these guys in. They didn't even take the time to make the full show of it, right? Because he's angry. These men defied him. They are not worshiping our gods. They are not one of us. So he throws them in the fire, and we're told they're not even standing. They end up on their side. So if you're trying to make a show of it, you want the guys standing, you want everyone gathered around, but Nebuchadnezzar's mad. He wants to get even. He wants to take vengeance on these men. Throws them in the fire, and we assume that they will die. That's how this story should end, right? I don't know if you've ever been burned. When I was a little guy, I was playing hopscotch through the kitchen, and my dad was boiling a pot of water for ramen, and I headbutted his hand as he was moving the pot to the stove. And I got a pan of boiling water on my head. And I don't remember what happened after that. Passed out, went to the hospital. It was a significant injury, right? That is it could have been way worse. It was head, arm, back. No scars that I know of, but I'm also pretty dark, so it's hard for the scars to show up. Fire, boiling water is painful. Fire is more painful. If you've ever seen something melt in a fire, imagine that being your skin. This is not the way to go. These men should die. And their clothes will melt onto their body. They'll scream. They'll die. And then once the fire has died down, whatever's left of them get dragged out and gets paraded in front of everyone. So you know what happens when you do not worship the gods of Babylon. But that's not how the story ends. Verse 25 and 26. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, I see 4 men unbound. So interestingly, the ropes that tied them together burn off in the fire. It was heated 7 times more than necessary, but their clothes totally unchanged. Walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace, and he declared, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire. So they were thrown into the fire by the mighty men who died from being burned to death. Their ropes burn off, and then they themselves walk out. It is hilarious how Nebuchadnezzar speaks to them. So if you're there and you're seeing someone who should be dying not die, are you going to go and command that person what to do? Me personally, I would not. I'd be terrified. I would be like, I don't know what's going on, but are you recording this? Right? You would be surprised by the experience. Nebuchadnezzar is a king, and he was big mad. Now he's shocked. He's like, hey, come out of there. Come over here. I need you guys to explain this to me. Right? It's a bizarre reaction, but he calls them out, and they step out of the fire. That line in verse 25, the 4th is like a son of the gods, shows that Nebuchadnezzar understands this to be a supernatural event. Right? He refers to them as servants of the Most High God. This event is what theologians call a theophany. It's a revelation of God in the human story. So if you read through the Old Testament, This happens in several places where there will be an angel or a supernatural being that steps into the story. And what it is the physical presence of God that dramatically alters the course of the story. When God shows up, unexpected things happen. Miracles happen. In this story, 3 dudes that should be burned to death relatively quickly because the guys who were close enough just to throw them in died. They should be dead. Instead, they're rescued. They walk out, and the 4th guy disappears. We know nothing after what happens. Three guys go in, 4 guys are in the fire, 3 guys walk out. That 4th guy showed up and then disappeared. Theologians call this a theophany, in that God's presence changes the story. It changes outcomes because God is the kind of God who enters into our story and works out his story, works out his plans. So Nebuchadnezzar, in this moment, what should be happening is he should recognize that he was just in God's presence. Like, hey, my bad. I know I made this image, but you know what this image has done? Literally nothing. It has never moved, right? It needed to be built. It needed to be moved. And then people only bowed to it because I threatened to kill them. Whereas this 4th being, this person who looks like a son of the gods, showed up in fire, rescued 3 others, and then disappeared. That's true power. That is the God that we should worship. But that's not what happens. The outcome of the story, verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own." The story should end with Nebuchadnezzar becoming a Christian. Like Nebuchadnezzar learning to worship the one true God. Why worship a big block of gold that will never do anything for you when you can worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the God who rescues from the fire? Instead, Nebuchadnezzar says, yeah, I guess the guy was cool or whatever. If anyone talks trash about him, we will kill you. Which this guy just likes to threaten people. So, I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's not the outcome that we should want to see. He should put respect on God's name, right? He calls him, when he's referring to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he says, God of the Most High, servants of God Most High. But in this story, he just says, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He's just another option. Nebuchadnezzar sees God face to face, sees God deliver the servants of God, very close and personal, and walks away still ignorant. You see, the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the kind of God who saves people from certain death in a fiery furnace. And in this story, we have a small foreshadow of how God saves his people. For people who do not worship the one true God, what awaits is eternal judgment. A fiery furnace ends in a few seconds. Judgment for rebellion against God is forever. And instead of you going through the furnace, Jesus goes through the furnace for you. And the Christian story is that Jesus died in your place, suffered the judgment that you deserve for your rebellion, not against a golden image, but against the God who made everything, who sustains everything, who has entered into this story, entered into our story, and invites you to come and serve him, invites you to come and know him, invites you into relationship with him. Nebuchadnezzar saw God face to face and still missed it. You and I face the same danger. That as we see this story, we might just miss it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they faced the fire, but they survived by faith in God. You and I face eternal judgment, but God willing, by faith, you will survive. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego survived the fire, but they would die later of old age. But you and I, if we put our faith in Jesus, will live forever. John 3:16, one of the most famous verses in the New Testament. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego dodged death once, but eventually they still died. But by faith, if you believe in Jesus, you shall not perish, but will instead gain eternal life. The Christian story is that we will live forever with God. Christian life begins in an act of the will as we repent of our sin and say, God, I will follow you. I don't even know what it means. I don't even understand all the things that I've done, but God, I'm on your team. Help me follow you. And we will be spared the judgment that awaits. This is a great story, but there's a few lessons that I want to pull out. There's two things that I want to challenge you with. The first is, this is the kind of story, we have them all throughout the Bible, but this is the kind of story that when you read it, it pushes us towards a decision, right? In this story, we have two options: golden image or God Most High. One of them rescues his people, one of them does nothing. And this kind of story invites us, will you come to Jesus? Will you come to the one who rescues you from the fire? Or will you keep trusting in an image of gold, in the shiny things of life that take your attention and keep you distracted? It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter who you are. If you come to Jesus by faith, he is the kind of God who accepts us, who offers his hand, and says, I will give you a second chance. So this is an opportunity for you to come to Jesus and be saved. The second thing is, this is a powerful story of Christian defiance, of not living the way of the world. This story shows the courage of three young men. I know Adriana made a big deal of this last week, but based on the age of Daniel and his friends when they were taken out of Israel, these were young adults. These were young men just like you, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, young dudes, left behind everything, put through an education where they were tried, they were renamed, they were taught a totally different history. They attempted to wipe out their Jewish heritage. And in the midst of that, three people just like you said, no, I'm not going to be just like you. I refuse to be a Babylonian. I serve God Most High. Daniel 3, 16 to 18 is a beautiful example of Christian defiance against tyranny. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. What they're saying is, we don't expect you to understand, because from your perspective, what we are doing is stupid. We're telling the most powerful king with the fiery furnace right there in the corner, we're not going to serve you, knowing we're going to end up in the furnace. We're crazy. You won't understand us. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. And low-key, I wish the verse ended there, right? Because then you're like, yeah, God always comes through. I'm not going to suffer as a Christian. But that's not how it goes. But if not, be it known to you, O king, we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. What these men offer us, what these young adults offer us, is an example of defying tyranny, of Christian courage, convictional courage in the face of opposition, knowing you will suffer. I think that these men form a paradigm. They set an example for what Christian life looks like on occasion. Christian life is not always this. So I don't expect you to walk out of here and say, I'm not going to follow that traffic law because Christian defiance, right? I don't worship Babylon, I worship Jesus, right? So there are some things that we simply play along with. But in every single person's life, in every single Christian's life, there are moments where you're standing in a group of people and everyone is bowing to the golden image, every nation, tribe, and tongue. And the expectation is that you will be just like us. And what these men say is, we're not going to serve your gods, we won't bow to your image, and God will rescue us. And even if he doesn't, we're still not going to go along with the way that you live. These men show that by the Spirit of God within you, they have the same spirit you and I have, right? These are young adults. We can have convictional courage and defy the tyrants that tell us how to live and tell us who to worship. Now, to draw the story from then to today, we don't have a King Nebuchadnezzar in our world. We don't have kings setting up golden images. But we do have people telling us how to live, telling us how to think, telling us what is good and what is not good. So I'm going to give you two examples of what I'm gonna call cultural tyrants. These are people that are famous in our culture, famous in our society, and they tell us implicitly or explicitly how to think and how to live. You might disagree with my examples, but what I want you to do is I want you to think about it, and I want you to ask yourself, where in my life is there a tyrant telling me, worship the golden image, be just like us? And you then have an opportunity to say, no, I will not serve your gods. I will not bow to your idol. God will rescue me, and even if he doesn't, I still will not bow. So here's my first one. I'm going after, a popular person, the homie Taylor Swift. I'm going after the homie Taylor Swift. She just dropped a new album, 12th studio album, which is crazy that someone is so creative. She's a highly creative artist. I'm not knocking her as an artist. But in this newest album, there's a song called Wood. Anyone familiar with the song? No, you're lying. I know some of you. Okay, do not look it up. Do not look it up. My wife is a huge Taylor Swift fan, and we had a it's all good. It's all good. I've forgiven her. We had a conversation about this album because I'm subscribed to a Christian newsletter that just kind of gives you feedback on just different things, movies that are coming out, songs that are coming out, albums that are coming out. And they did a review of this album, and they were like, this is the most sexually explicit content ever produced by Taylor Swift. And I was like, pardon me, what? I remember Taylor Swift from White Dress and Fearless, right? The good stuff, the good songs, right? Our song, anyone? This, I know I'm older than you guys, but Taylor Swift used to make country. Did you guys know that? That's crazy. So anyways, this song called Wood is a suggestive song about her boyfriend, which I'll let you fill in the dots on what it might mean. I think you can track with me. What the song is glorifying is a unmarried woman and an unmarried man enjoying sex, having sex together. And in our culture, that's what matters, right? You find someone who you love. You get married, or just kidding, you don't get married. You move in together, and you have sex. That's what love is. Bow to the golden image. Everyone is doing it. And as Christians, we have the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm not going to listen to the music because I think it sucks. And I'm not going to listen to the message because I think it's wrong. So I'm actually a Christian, and I will not worship your gods, and I will not bow to your idol. Maybe that was a bad example because it sounds like none of you listened to the album. Praise God. Keep it that way. Now I'm going to go even deeper. You might, if you didn't like that one or you didn't care, hopefully this one gets you. The Summer I Turned Pretty. Anyone? Okay, I'm going after you. Empty the clip. Just kidding. I'm a Mennonite, and I don't even know what a gun is because I'm a Christian. The Summer I Turned Pretty. All right, my wife was watching season 1, right? I lasted less than 2 episodes. And then I was like, Rebecca, what is this trash? And now they've dropped season 2, and she was like, I think we should watch it. And I was like, hard pass. We're not going to watch that show. And we had a conversation about it. And the motivation for the decision that we made was it's hard to enjoy something that is glorifying things that we fundamentally disagree with. So the whole premise of the show is a largely unmonitored young adult woman is stuck in a love triangle between 2 brothers, which is funny, I guess, but I view it as tremendously sad because the duty of Christian parents is to disciple Christian kids and prepare them for married life, which this young girl doesn't have because her parents are divorced and are in that modern divorce that's actually best friendship. It's a bizarre story, right? But it makes for great laughs. And Rebecca and I, as we discussed it, we're like, well, why would we bow to the golden idol? Why would we participate in something that the world says this is fun, this is entertaining, this is what life is like, when we fundamentally disagree? This is not what our life is like. We have 3 little kids, number 4 is on the way, and I guarantee you that will not be my daughter's life. She will not have divorced parents who are not interested in her life and give her 0 guidance as she approaches dating. She will have Christian parents who teach her from God's word how to approach dating, as will her brothers, because we're a Christian family. We're Christian people. We will not bow to the idol. We do not worship your gods. These are 2 examples. Maybe you dislike the examples. But what I want you to take away is the principle. We live in a world where there are not physical golden idols, but there are cultural tyrants that tell us how to think, they tell us how to live, and the average Christian unwittingly just participates in everything the world throws at us. But our story today showed us tremendous Christian courage of men who are willing to die in a fire rather than bow to an idol. Far be it from us to be unwilling to take a snide comment or get made fun of one time in the break room because we live as Christian people in a non-Christian world. The entire book of Daniel is about faithfulness in an unfaithful age. If these three young men could do it, living far away from home with no support around them, surely you and I, filled with the Spirit of God, with a Christian church around us, can be the kind of people who say, no, we will not bow to your idols. We will not worship your God. Desmond Doss is an example of tremendous courage. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are examples of tremendous courage. And Desmond Doss served in a war. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego served under a foreign king. You and I have a very different life, but we face the same decision. Will we subscribe to the tyrants of our time and worship the idols they put in front of us, or will we serve God Most High? Honor God by defying tyrants. Let me pray for you guys, and I'll invite the music team back up. Father God, thank you for this day and for the opportunity to speak from your word. Lord, this example is inspiring of three young adults, three young men, like the men and women in this room, young people still figuring out their life, and yet when the moment of crisis came, they showed great courage and trusting God Most High rather than serving the gods and the idols of their age. So, Father, I pray for everyone here, those who are not yet Christian, that they would make the decision to trust in the God who delivers from the fire. And those who are Christian, God, I pray that they would have the courage and the conviction to say no to the idols of our age. I use some examples, maybe they're silly examples, God, but you know our hearts and minds, you know our lives. I pray that by your Spirit, you would challenge each and every one of us on the places in our lives where we face the idols of the tyrants around us, of the people who tell us how to live and how to think and how to be in a way that conforms to the world around us. Father, help us be faithful Christian people in an age of unfaithfulness. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.